Good morning. This is September 2004, and I'm the Reverend Betty Mcfirson Benner. I'd like to read to you this morning from the New Testament. The first verse is from Matthew chapter 8, verse 13. And Jesus said to the centurion, "Go thy way, and as thou hast believed, so be it done unto thee." And the second verse is from Mark chapter 9, verse 23. Jesus said unto him, "If thou canst believe, all things are possible to him that believeth." And finally, from Mark chapter 11, verses 23 and 24. "For verily I say unto you, that whosoever shall say unto this mountain, Be thou removed, and be thou cast into the sea, and shall not doubt in his heart, but shall believe that those things which he saith shall come to pass, he shall have whatsoever he saith. Therefore I say unto you, what things soever ye desire, when ye pray, believe that ye receive them, and ye shall have them." Well, as you probably have guessed, I wanted to talk to you a little this morning about belief. Our beliefs. The longer I spend in this teaching, and the older I grow, the more I realize that beliefs are probably one of the most powerful and important aspects of our entire life, spiritual, material, and any other aspect you can imagine. For a long time, I, and I'm sure you also, have heard from time to time these teachings about beliefs. And somehow, I guess in my mind, I always kind of relegated them to the sphere of religion. They had to do with believing in God and believing in spiritual things. But if you hear the words, there's no limit. Jesus isn't talking simply about believing in God or believing in Him or believing in spiritual truth. He's saying all things that ye believe. And so one of the great ahas of my life has been this idea that my beliefs really do determine the experience that I have. And then when I go back and read the things that Dr. Clymer says, I realize he was saying that all along. And somehow it just never got past my head into my heart to realize it on an experiential level. The Toltec teachings talk about the beliefs of our culture or our race. Dr. Clymer referred to them as race beliefs, but they call them the dream of the planet, the beliefs that we all accept. And different cultures have different sets of beliefs, which has probably got a lot to do with what's going on right now in Iraq. We've got two different cultures with two different sets of beliefs. It was interesting. I was reading somewhere that even our language reflects our beliefs as a culture. Because if you look at English, for instance, English is always based on a subject-predicate. There's a doer and then what is done. And so there's a great deal of emphasis on some person or somebody or something doing something, making some kind of an action. In a lot of other languages, that isn't the case. Even in Spanish, it occurs to me that oftentimes the subject, the doer, is assumed, and you only imply the subject by the form of the verb, so that you don't have to say the subject in a sentence. You can just start out with the verb, and the form of the verb tells you by implication who the subject is. And so even there's a diminishing importance in the individual. And I would imagine that if we went to some place like China, and I'm not at all familiar with Chinese language, that we'd find that the subject is even less important, where in their cultural belief system, the whole community is more important than the individual, which is not at all the way we tend to think about it in the Western world. I'm reminded of this when I see the Olympics and they talk about the Chinese athletes and their attitude toward winning and losing and the importance it is to them. It's a different thing. It's not an individual thing first and then for country. It's quite the other way around. It's interesting, too, to me, and I think part of my aha came as a result of what's going on in science now, where the physicists have decided that they can actually affect matter by their beliefs, their expectations, maybe even their intentions. So that on a very small level, when they start dealing with pieces of atoms, they can determine by what they believe or what they intend or what they expect, if you will, whether something is matter or whether it's energy. They can change it, and they've proven it. So if it can happen on the very smallest level, and we know as within, without, as above, below, etc., we have to believe that it must be possible on the largest level as well. And I think that's kind of confirmed when John starts out with, in the beginning was the Word. The Word symbolizes the expression of that intent. Beliefs are funny things. We tend to have beliefs. We absorb them from people around us when we're children and as we grow by our culture. And we tend to think that our beliefs are based on experience. But what I've begun to realize is that my beliefs are what determine my experience. And that what I look for in my experience is things to confirm my beliefs. And oftentimes I only see the things that confirm my beliefs. I kind of ignore or don't even acknowledge the things that don't or that aren't consistent. And it's kind of simplistic to refer to the old glass half empty, half full, but it's so true. You really can see it either way. And if you have a tendency to always see it as half empty, you probably have a tendency to be somewhat frustrated and disappointed with your life. And maybe that has some positive attributes. Maybe it makes you work harder and try harder. But if you can see it half full at least half the time, which seems reasonable, then at least you'd have some sense of satisfaction and much more peace and calm. And the glass hasn't changed. It's how we determine to define it, and that's based on our beliefs about what things mean. If our beliefs are conflicting, we can often be confused and feel defeated. But what we have to acknowledge or realize eventually is that we are exactly where we once decided we wanted to be, and we are experiencing exactly what we wanted to experience, whether it be from a karmic situation from a previous life or not. Somewhere along the line, looking down from heaven or at some place, we decided that we wanted to have these experiences. And I think we need to trust that decision and realize that it was the right one. And experience what it is we've brought to ourselves and look for the message, look for the lesson that's there. If you're experiencing anything that you prefer not to experience, then I have a little process that you might want to use. First of all, stop and look at it and really analyze what it's about. And to help you, you might think to yourself, what would someone have to believe in order to have this experience? Now that does two things. First of all, it reminds you that the experience isn't happening to you. You're not a victim. You've created the experience, and it's based on a belief that you have. And so immediately it helps you to take responsibility for where you are, which is important because now you have the power to remove yourself or to change the situation, to change the experience. As long as you're a victim, there's nothing you can do about it. And the second aspect of it is if you can do this, and you may need to find a nice quiet place, maybe do it when you've finished your drills or at a time when you've been in prayer so that you kind of have opened that unconscious doorway. It may help you to realize that you have some beliefs that are not helping you or that are not giving you the kind of an experience that you might like to have. It may be a belief such as, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, I never could do that. All that silly kind of stuff that we've picked up over the years and forgotten to get rid of, that does not really do us anything positive. You may believe anything you please. Now, I'm not giving you permission. I'm telling you that that's a fact. You can believe anything. You can believe anything about your past. You can believe anything about the present. And you can believe anything you want to about the future. And how you feel at any given moment, how you experience your life, is going to be determined by what belief you choose to have. And when you believe it, without doubt, you will experience it as reality. And we can change that reality whenever we will. So it's all about becoming less a creature and more a creator.